That's the greatest non-League of Legends player talking about League of Legends thing I've ever heard in my entire life is don't be a minion, because that's real advice that people give to each other to roast each other.
Hello everyone and welcome to this very unique series hosted by Santander, where for a change, I won't be talking too much about financial education, but instead I'm going to be diving into the world of gaming. You see, today I'm taking a look at, in particular, the game of League of Legends, which I know absolutely nothing about, but that's okay, because I'm joined today by the truly incredible Drakos, who I will hand over now to introduce himself.
Ooh, I like that. Truly incredible. Thank you, Gabriel. I'm Drakos. I've been an esports commentator for 8 years. I currently commentate in the LEC, all things to do with high-level competitive League of Legends, and I'm excited to show you everything that League of Legends has to offer and is about.
I'm both excited and petrified by that idea, because if anyone has seen my face before, it has been purely related to trying to make people better with their money, better with finances. League of Legends, yeah, not so much. That's probably something people have never seen me do before. So if it's all right with you, could you maybe metaphorically hold my hand, take me through this game? Maybe let's take a little look into the economics of it, because, you know, maybe I'll feel a bit warmer and a bit safer in that area. But overall, let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. There's so much to learn, and maybe there's something I can take away too from a financial perspective. Not something I always get to think about in the context of League of Legends, but we'll take a look at it together.
Okay, guys, there is only one possible place that we can kick off this entire series, and that is right at the beginning. I know nothing about League of Legends, so Drakos, I am really sorry to do this to you, but can you teach me all of the basics that I might need to know about the game that is League of Legends?
League of Legends can be a little bit daunting at first, but the crux of it is it's a 5v5 game in a fantasy setting. And over the course of this game, 2 teams of 5 players are going to go head-to-head across a map with the goal of destroying the other team's base. Over the course of the game, each and every game, your character resets back to level 1, back to not having much money or income at all. But by the end of the game, you become up to level 18, and you have from a little tiny dagger to the biggest, coolest swords that you get to buy with money.
I know somewhat that there's different options of like which way you can go, and I'm assuming that's what lanes are. Can you give me like the full beginner's explanation on this so I understand what this word lanes even means in the first place?
Yeah, so lanes just kind of identify 3 spaces on the map where these are the routes where those minions go. And because minions are where the money is, and getting those little last hits or finishing them off is how you get gold, it kind of decides where the players go to, because that's where the resources are. So for top lane and mid lane, you're sending 1 player each, very similar, geographically like different. The terrain is a little bit different. One is a little bit longer, but more or less those players are getting income in the exact same way. The exception, the third lane that's a little bit different, is called bottom lane. Bottom lane has 2 players, 1 player who is getting those resources, and the other player who exists there to kind of facilitate them. They don't get the gold from those minions. They have an alternative way to generate revenue that's built into the game, a specific item that kind of just gets them money from participating and standing alongside this other player. And they're not really the center of attention. They're there kind of to set somebody else up, to get all that money, to keep them safe while they get all that money, to reduce any exposure that they have to kind of any risk or any threat from their opponents. And then the last role is the jungle, which doesn't exist in any of lanes, but you can see these little nooks and crannies across the map, and each one of those, some monsters are going to spawn, things like wolves, there's a giant frog, there's a big stone golem. And when you take those down, you also get money and experience in the same way. So as you play the game, you're going to be hitting minions. And while kind of the fun part of the game that I think most people look forward to is hitting other characters, you know, you've got your mage versus your guy with big axes and not enough clothes, you know, the fantasy classic. Hitting these minions is really important because it's how you're going to get money, and money lets you buy more items. And so it seems like a small task, but over time, as you just continuously take down these minions, you're going to accrue more and more gold, which will allow you to buy bigger and bigger items.
I like that this idea of you're doing it with an objective, with a reason, that you're earning money to strengthen you up, upskill yourself, and achieve a goal, I suppose, which is at the end of the day, winning the game. And I think that's always an important aspect of generating income, because whilst it's obviously great to hoard the stuff and build our savings, having that kind of objective in mind makes it so much more easy and more powerful to kind of take yourself through the financial levels in life.
You can become stronger and faster and more effective. And so that's where that income comes from. And that's the reward for doing a good job of getting these minions. As you highlighted, even if that maybe doesn't feel like the best source of income in the context of the real world, in the context of League of Legends, it's the easiest way to get it. And one of the other ways you can get income is if you build enough of an advantage and you destroy enough of those red creatures on the screen that you see there, you're going to be able to walk up and you're going to hit that big structure called a tower. And as you knock it down in health, you're going to knock down tower plates. You're going to get additional income on top of that. So not only when you play do you need to be worried about kind of last hitting and doing this kind of 9 to 5 job of making sure that you're getting all of this additional income.
What that was just kind of like shouting at the back of my mind is that so many people think when it comes to understanding about money and finances that you need to have been born with it, or you need to have gone to the right school or gone through the right education system, or, been born into the right household. But the truth is, number one is financial literacy isn't the strongest, full stop, in any of those environments, unless you are especially lucky. And there are so many little things that you can do to start stacking those advantages in your own favor, whether it's, pulling out that first ever book that you're interested in, even, going on social media and watching that first lesson and starting to stack those financial education lessons so you actually do start to learn these lessons and build the right practices in the right way. And what I really wanted to kind of stress out was this idea that you don't have to be someone with an unfair advantage, with a background in this stuff. Anyone can become good with money, given the right tools and steps. And by the sounds of it, anyone can become good at League of Legends, given the right tools and the right steps. Hopefully. Well, maybe anyone but me.
Well, I think even you could become good. And I think the cool thing about League of Legends is you can become good on kind of multiple levels, right? We talk about the football example, and there certainly are players who are just much better at the game, right? And those are our pros. But even when you're playing competitive League of Legends, you're not considered the best. You can approach the game with that awareness, and you can still leverage knowledge of the game and how it works and its systems to get way better results than someone in your skill bracket normally would be able to, just from knowing the game really well. Even if you can't click great at all, if you know all the systems really well, it doesn't really matter. You'll always be able to punch above your weight, which I imagine is somewhat similar to what you're saying for finance, where if you have really good information and really good understanding, it doesn't matter if you're, if you have a trust fund or if you're born with a ton of assets, you can kind of, you can do a lot to accrue something over time.
I like it. Drakos, we're getting somewhere. I'm starting to feel a bit more comfortable League of Legends wise, and you're starting to sound, well, like me.
I mean, I'll take it. Of the two sets of knowledge that we are bringing to the table here, I think it might be unfair for me to say that League of Legends is the more practical, more immediately impactful for my life and for many gamers out there. It feels like, because this is the game that we see and play every single day. But I think no matter who you are, financial information is pretty important. That said, we talked a little bit about how you can kind of accrue these additional advantages by pushing waves. I think the other thing to highlight is that this laning phase, this is kind of the simplest part of the game because it's just you versus one other person, and you've got this very simple job. But then when you start to get out of the lane phase, as the game progresses, you're going to have accrued levels, you're going to have gotten some of these items. Your job is kind of going to complicate, and the map is going to get bigger because you go from just playing in this little tiny space to taking more and more. Options start to open up. There's more things that you can do. There's a big dragon that you can kill. There are these other structures that you can kind of see a little bit on your screen now called inhibitors that are going to give you even more advantages. And so probably similar to what you're saying in financial literacy, the lane phase, you start off very simple. There's not a lot that you can do, but I imagine maybe you can explain this to me. When you look at finance, the more knowledge you have, probably the more options there are for things that you can pursue, for things that you can chase or follow up to kind of expand what you're doing in the world of personal finance.
Honestly, the more you talk, the more I'm thinking that maybe we do just talk about the same thing in our day jobs, because I loved it. Like, you were basically talking about kind of that focus on yourself, that focus on that one thing until you're really good at it, that first lane, yeah? So whether that's that one skill set, that job, that day job that you have, like, obviously spend some time. That is your core income, right? So get used to it. Build out your skill set. Go for those promotions. Do what you can to make yourself as impressive as you can in your main lane in life. But then you don't need to stop there. And I think we're seeing more and more young people do what you described as going to help your mate in another lane now that you've kind of built yourself up to a stronger level. And what I'm describing in real life is, you've got evenings now and you've got a bit of time on yourself. And there's that hobby that you always wanted to get into that could earn you a little bit more money. I think the technical term is side hustles for this. And I'm a big advocate for side hustles. I don't think everyone needs a side hustle. And I think it's absolutely fine to stay in your lane. And like you mentioned about kind of strengthening your position. And that could be through just, learning the skills that'll make you better at your day job, thinking about your promotions, thinking about how you're going to work your way up through that specific career. But there are other options as well. And if you find yourself interested in something else, why not go dive in to that side lane, that side hustle where you can generate slightly more income, that once again, more income equals more choice in life. When you're getting income, depending on which route you take, does this go towards the team's efforts or your own individual's efforts?
So this goes to you as an individual. You do want your team as a whole to be strong, and there are ways you can supplement your team's income. But for the most part, anytime you get any sort of income outside of that one position we talked about called support, where you're facilitating someone else, all of your money is going towards yourself to buy various powerful items. And it's really important that you get this income and that you complete these items, because I would say, probably similar to real life, the full item completion is the big thing. The financial comparison, I would say, is if you save almost enough money to buy a house, it's not worth anything, right? It's like, it's good, but you can't buy a house with it. So it's like, is the in-between stay valuable? And it's similar for League of Legends items. The little components are nice. They're a small advantage, but that big item at the end has a disproportionately big effect on how strong your character is. So while it's good to get those little bits and pieces, ultimately you always want to be pursuing these powerful items. They're going to offer you the most advantage. They're going to give you the most return on your investment.
There could not be a better parallel for, I think, the way that people spend their money these days, because obviously earlier on I was talking about these large objectives. It's good to have goals with your money, but so many people end up not achieving those goals because they get distracted by the shiny things in the short term. So I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. You get that first job and all of a sudden you think to yourself, do you know what? I can afford that nicer car. Like, I don't want to drive around in that beat up car that I've been driving around in for the past 3 years since I was a student. They want to go straight away for the lease, for the car that makes them look like they're earning loads of money. And whilst, of course, in the short term, that will give you that little ego boost, you'll feel good about yourself and all that kind of stuff. In the long term, that's really damaging the big goals, the way that you're going to make yourself kind of give yourself financial stability in life. If you can have that right level of balance where you are saving up enough towards something that makes you, skip a few of the things that you really wanted or kind of wanted in the short term to get to that longer term item, that is one of the strongest superpowers you can have with your money. And I think, like you mentioned in League of Legends, don't get distracted by just buying anything that you can afford the moment that you can afford it, because really the real winners come from the people that save up and buy that bigger item.
I love that. That's excellent advice. It's also so funny to me because every time we talk about these examples, we're talking about real life, right? And it's so funny to compare this to this parallel of League of Legends, where you'll have that decision so many times per game. And in the grand scheme of things, it's 30 minutes of your life. If you make a mistake, you just go again. And whenever we talk about personal finance advice, you probably won't have the opportunity to be 18, 20 times and be choosing between buying a fancy car or leasing a fancy car and saving money. So it's just such an interesting contrast to me.
Yeah, I like it. You're starting to see that maybe League of Legends isn't just a little bit of fun, a little bit of escapism. You've secretly been teaching yourself the most extreme financial education lessons, and you didn't even realize it. I'm with you. Lanes were making sense. I get this item, this shop management. The minions I am finding the minions a little bit tricky. Who's in control of them? Do they just follow you around?
They just exist. They're just little AI, little robots, more or less. But if you get involved and you start getting those finishing blows, that's when that income starts to come into play. And if you left the game of League of Legends alone for a very long time, eventually, mostly through sheer luck, one side would eventually win, because maybe they would come into a certain area and then they'd end up getting focus fired, or the angle would be a little bit wrong. But it'd take a very, very long time. But that's more or less what the minions are doing. There you
I've
go.
got it.
Here's a great example.
So
they just hit each other.
They just hit each other. I would love to give you a financial comparison to just hitting each other, but maybe that's just, there is a good one. This is going to be really tenuous for you, but it's the idea of, okay, Christmas is almost around the corner, yeah? And there are
Sure.
so many people that you buy gifts for just because they've bought you a gift in the first place. And really what you're both doing is you're just throwing £20 or €20 or $20 just in the bin because neither of you really needed to get each other a present. And it's a lose-lose game. It's like a lose-lose sum, right? Because you hit me, I hit you, we've both got a black eye. You spent 20 on me, I spent 20 on you. Neither of us wanted the scarf, but now we're both £20 down. So perhaps the lesson to learn from the minions is don't be a minion. Don't be a minion. Be an actual player that you can make your own decisions and talk to talk to someone else and maybe be like, do you know what, this year, let's just avoid the scarf. Merry Christmas. And that's all you need to hear from me.
That's the greatest non-League of Legends player talking about League of Legends thing I've ever heard in my entire life is don't be a minion, because that's real advice that people give to each other to roast each other on occasion when it comes to is just don't be a. It's in a different context, but I've gotten that was advice I've got from a friend like 5 years ago. He's like, stop being a minion. Think about it. Make your own decisions.
Yeah, don't be a minion. Don't just do something because that's what everyone else is doing. Think for yourself. Amazing. I think that is the absolute perfect place for us to end our first episode. You have taught me all of the basics of League of Legends. Well, that's according to my own interpretation of what the basics of League of Legends are. And I think, you tell me if I'm wrong. Am I starting to sprinkle some financial education into your life through League of Legends?
I feel like you've sugar-coated the medicine. It's Mary Poppins, it's going down nice and easy. I'm learning so much about finance in a context that is so comfortable with my existing League of Legends knowledge, kind of in context.
Yeah, the only thing that I need right now is some kind of remote controller to actually play the game. But we'll save that. We'll see if that comes out one of the future episodes. But for now, let's leave it there. Basics covered. Bring on episode 2.